Welcome to Creating Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Paige. This is an inspirational podcast where guests come on and share their real life stories. They discuss their struggles, hardships, and traumas. They also discuss how those encounters have helped them change, grow, and the healing process they've experienced. They share where they are today in hopes of helping someone else who could be going through the same or similar situations. So join me as we inspire others weekly to become the best versions of themselves. Hey y'all, welcome into another episode of Creating Yourself podcast with me, your host Paige. Today I have on Breana, and she is going to be talking to us about her daughter who is experiencing bullying in her elementary school. She's 9 years old, and she's being bullied by a 10-year-old boy. The school is choosing to protect the bully. Shocker. But we're gonna sit down with her and we're gonna chat about that, the statistics of bullying, which are always hard to look at. Hey Breana, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. First off, I do want to apologize that you're dealing with this. I know how it feels. I've dealt with it with my oldest son. It's not fun, but you're doing what's right for your kiddo, and that's what matters.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. So just start out and tell us how it started and what's going on.
This is a hard story to tell. So there's been 4 incidents in total. The first incident with this particular student, he had slapped her, punched her, and shoved her to the ground. And she had come home from school and she was like, yeah, there was an incident with this particular student at school today. And I was like, oh, okay. Just asking details. We play this game, this question thing at the table. And it's just like at dinner time. And it's really asking her, obviously, how her day was. But I like to get like details on like who got in trouble today, that kind of thing. We kind of asked like weird questions just to kind of prompt the discussion. And she came in right away and was like, oh yeah, well, this happened at school today. So he punched and then he slapped her and shoved her to the ground. I'm like, well, I need some context here. Like, explain to me what happened. She said that they had her and another girl and they were playing with a volleyball and the volleyball had stickers on it. And so they had stickers in their hands and they were trying to pluck them out. And the other little girl got really upset. And then a whole group of kids came over and that student that they have problems with came over as well. And her friend ran away from the situation and said that she didn't want to talk about it right now because she was really upset. She'd been crying. And so my daughter said, go ahead and just like leave her alone. She needs a minute. And then the student that she has issues with stepped up into the situation and said he was going to go after her. And my daughter said, no, leave her alone. She needs a minute. She's upset. And so that's when he slapped her in the stomach, punched her in the stomach, and then shoved her to the ground and ran after that other student. So I obviously was very upset. I was very upset.
Right, yeah. And that's instant like mama bear rage.
I'm like, what is happening right now? And I was like, okay, explain to me. And so she explained to me that this happened in their PE class, and their PE class happens on the fields. And the fields, unfortunately, is one of those things that doesn't have cameras, so there's not like they can pull for footage, so they have to like interview students. And in that scenario, I guess during the altercation between my daughter and the other student that she has problems with, the crowd had sort of like dispersed, so it was really just interaction with the two of them. I don't think other kids were really paying attention. It was like they're on the field, they're playing soccer and stuff. So there wasn't really witnesses to the situation enough to give like a detailed description when they went to interview because they did investigate. I reached out to the school. I started with the teacher of that class because I just didn't really know where to start when I first reported. And he told me that there was no incident to investigate. I said, so there's not like an incident report? Like, how do you guys monitor this? And he said, someone had come over and let him know what happened, and he didn't think it needed an incident report. And that was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give you the version of events I received. Let me give you this full story. And so he said, okay, let me look into it. And so then the next day I get an email, and he said that after looking into it, he did decide to file an incident report. And I asked for a copy of that. And he said, because it disclosed the other student's name, he was not allowed to give it to me. Which, again, I'm the one that reported it. I already know which students are involved, but whatever. I can respect the rules. Okay, so I'll play by the rules for now.
Right. I
And
never understand that. Like,
he just
why
said that the
can't they
student,
just white out the student's name and then give you a copy
yeah,
of
like
it?
cross it out. I don't,
I don't
fine,
understand
whatever.
that.
And they
Yeah.
also said that they stated that it had been referred administratively for discipline, so that was also why they weren't allowed to tell me what happened to that student, how it was handled. And so that's a very like trust the school system process, and
I don't
I
like
say
that either.
I do to a point, okay? Like, if you show me that you're trustworthy, okay, sure. And at this point, we really hadn't dealt with anything that I didn't feel like they could handle, and so I just was like, okay, we're just gonna let this go. They said they took care of it, and then I received an email from the vice principal. She's the one that deals with the disciplinary side of things. And she said, after further investigation, that it was a miscommunication and that she was going to give me a call in regards to this. So she calls me a few minutes later, and it was my kid in the office with her, the vice principal. And she said that to my child, that it was a miscommunication, and that after further investigation, that child was just trying to push past her to go continue playing. And she's like giving me this whole story about how it was a miscommunication. She just like keeps going on and on. And so I let her finish, and I said, I totally respect your position, and I understand that you have got to get all the sides of the story. I said, but there's no way that a slap and a punch are a miscommunication. And I said, and I will not allow what happened to my child for her to think that it's not a big deal, because it is a big deal, and nobody should be putting their hands on her. It's fine. His push passed and she fell to the ground. I could see how that could happen, but the punch and the hit, that it's very clear what happened. So this is the very first time what ended up being this huge ordeal. And I went through the proper channels, and I said, moving forward, he just needs to stay away from her. And she said, okay. So then probably about a week later, they had I don't know if they like ran into each other in the hallway or just like annoyed with each other. They were coming from the same class. They were walking back inside, and she walks through the doors of the building that they're walking into, and he slams the door in her face. So she walks into the building, opens the door for herself, and is like, what is the problem? And he refuses to address her, but addresses another student and said, she's the problem. He names my daughter, and sticks this other kid to come like talk to her. So this kid comes over and starts screaming in her face about how she's a tattletale. And I'm like, listen.
Right.
So she comes home, she tells me about this. Again, this happened in an area where there's no cameras. There's no evidence. This school that they go to is an older school. They only have cameras in certain areas. But I'm like peeved about this. I'm like, now he's like getting other people to join in on the bullying. Like, we're not doing this. And so another email off to the vice principal. She said she's going to investigate. And then I'm once again told it's handled. And I'm not really allowed to know how it's handled, which again is very hard. It's very hard to like just let that go.
Yeah, it is. Trust me, I've experienced it. Yeah, I get it. It's like, but how did you handle it? Like, you got to give me
I want to know. Like, tell me how you're protecting my kid, please.
Right. You don't have to tell me how you dealt with him, but like, how are you protecting my child?
100%.
Yeah.
So then they have a Saturday school at this school that she goes to, and basically it's you can go and you can get any sort of tutoring and bring up your grade. And my daughter really struggles in math, and she loves really school, cool. And they make it a whole like game thing. Yeah. And if you attend all of the ones on Saturday, then you get like a reward party on the very last one, and they get to like hang out and have like ice cream or pizza or whatever. So it's like a reward for bringing up your grade. So anybody has like struggles with anything, you can go, even if it's just like a test or, it could be anything. So she loves going to those on Saturdays, and it's like a half day. Yeah. And so she always tries to go. So she went to one for math that day, and he came over to her desk where she was sitting and was trying to help her with a math question. She said, it's okay. I'm just going to ask the teacher. I really don't need your help. So he got very irritated about that when sat back at his desk. And then they went to switch the classrooms that they were in probably 5-10 minutes later. And he sticks his foot out and trips her and then goes, oh my gosh, you hurt me. I can't believe you touched me. You hurt me. And we started freaking out. And so then my child was like, are you kidding? Excuse me? And I asked her, I said, their big thing about each of these incidences is she's coming home and she's telling me and she's not telling them. And so they said, like, we can't do anything if you don't tell us right away. So I asked her when she got home, I said, did you report it? And she said, no. And I asked her why. And she said, I don't trust that they're not going to get upset with me for how I react. And they're going to get upset that I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. Valid. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do that. And I also think too that my daughter has an anxiety disorder. She is diagnosed with high anxiety. And so it's hard for her to communicate with adults, and it's hard for her to communicate with people how she feels. And when she does, if she feels like they're not listening, she's very easily persuaded or downplayed. So she felt like the last 2 incidences, they had talked her out of what happened or downplayed how she was feeling about it. And this is my opinion, I don't think she felt safe to talk to an adult about it at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally agree with that opinion for sure, because I mean, I feel like when things as adults, when things happen to us and people downplay them and kind of talk us out of our feelings, the next time something happens, we're exactly 100. That's exactly where I was going. Like, it's 100% gaslighting us and being like, well, those feelings aren't really valid. Like, that's not really how you felt. This is how you should have felt in that situation. So the next 100%. Time it happens,
and as an adult, so easy to be gaslit. I'm like, as a 4th grader, I can only imagine.
God,
where your brain
cannot
is at.
even imagine. Yeah, she's totally valid, and like
she's
being
very
like,
good at,
I didn't want to talk to them. I wouldn't have wanted to talk to them as an adult.
No, 100%. No. And she's really good at articulating what she needs to me and her dad, because we worked really, really hard to get to this point, because I can't give you what you need if you don't tell me what you need.
Right.
And I know that can be frustrating trying to put into words what you need, but we've pushed really hard for her. Like, if you're having anxiety, it can be about something or it can be about nothing, but I can't help you unless you tell me exactly either how you're feeling or what the expectations are. If you're like, I just feel weird in my clothes. Okay, cool. We can fix that. Or like, I need a minute. It's too loud in here. Okay, we can fix that. Those are fixable things, you know? So she's pretty good at telling me and her dad, but she doesn't always trust that adults have her best interest, which is sad as a 4th grader to acknowledge that maybe not every adult has her best interest. She had already felt in that moment that because these incidents had happened with her PE teacher, that he wasn't a trusted adult. And so that just tells me right there that she's feeding into that, well, they're not listening to what I have to say.
Yeah.
So with that incident, she told me, I let them know, there wasn't really any response with that. And so we kind of talked about it, and I said, is he still bothering you? She's like, no, he's left me alone. And I'm like, okay. So I said, would you like, and I always ask her, because again, this is what's happening to her. And she'll ask me like what I think about it, and I'll tell her what I think about it if she asks me. But I said, do you want me to pursue this? Do you want me to leave it alone? She's like, well, did you report it? I said, yes. She said, I think we should just leave it alone for right now. And I was like, okay, I mean, I can do that. I was like, he didn't physically harm you at the moment other than tripping you. He's making a big deal, but it is documented. And she was like, okay. So this leads us up to the big, what I posted to TikTok. They were in the classroom, which again, the classrooms don't have cameras. And he walked over to her desk again, discussing, I think it was a math question again. And she said she wasn't interested in speaking to him. And he repeatedly punched her over and over again in the chest. And I said, okay, was this like playful? Were you guys joking beforehand? And she said, no, he just got upset. And then he just kept hitting me over and over. And I said, did it leave a mark? Did it hurt? And she said, well, it made my chest red. And I was like, okay. She's like, but I don't think there's like going to be a bruise, and there wasn't any scratches. And I said, okay. And and I'm fuming. I'm not even home when I hear about this. I actually get a call originally from the person that picked her up from school. I had to work that day. And so I get a call from her. She's like, have you talked to your kid? And I said, no. She's like, okay, I got a version of events. I want her to give you her version, and then we can talk about it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I call my daughter and I say, hey, listen, did something happen at school? And she said, yeah. And I kind of wanted to wait to talk to you about it. And I said, okay, but I think it's kind of important you tell me right now. And she said, okay. So she goes over this, and it's the same story that I got from the person that called me, my friend that had picked her up. And it was that he punched her over and over and over again in the chest because she said she didn't really want to speak to him in regards to a question. Okay. I'm like fuming. I got like steam coming out my nose. I'm waiting for my client to show up. I'm like pissed. And so I called the school district this time, and I explained to the office person I spoke to, I said, this is the story I've gotten from my child. I want to know what I need to do. She said, let me transfer you over to the district officer. So this is my first interaction with the district officer. I explained to him what's happening, and I explained to him all the other incidents. He said, this sounds like a repeat issue. And he said, I would absolutely consider filing charges. And I said, I think that's the route that I want to go. And he said, in the state that you're in, the child needs to be at least 10 years old. So I'll have to verify his age. And I said, okay, please get back to me with this. And he said, absolutely. And he said, moving forward, you need to make a meeting with the superintendent. I guess in our district, we have a specific section that deals with bullying, investigating bullying. Then they have like a chain of command and a routine that they're supposed to do. And I said, okay, great. The school that she goes to does not have a history of having a lot of kids come to and from the school that they have to deal with bullying incidents. So it was rare, and he was really surprised, but he also said it needed to be taken care of. And I was like, thank you. It was very validating in that moment to hear like, yes, this is wrong. I don't know why it hasn't been taken care of yet.
Yeah.
So he said, go ahead and draft an email to the school and draft an email to me, send those over so that you have it in documented. I said, okay, great. And then I made the meeting with the superintendent per his suggestion. And so all that was said, I still have like 15 minutes before my client shows up. And then I got a call from the school. And it's the vice principal again. And she said, hey, I just want to let you know about an incident. Oh, I'm well aware of an incident. Thank you for calling me to let me know. This happened at 10 o'clock this morning. And I found out from my child at 3. Like, this is not cool. I'm fuming. And I said, and you know what? Before you even start, I already know what happened. And she's like, well, what did your daughter say happened? Did she say there was contact made? And I said, yes, like he punched her over and over. She said, well, from our investigation, I was told that there was shoving done, not hitting. And I said, number one, that's still contact. He still shouldn't be putting his hands on her. Number two,
it doesn't matter if he at touched her, that's contact.
No. There's still contact. And I said, and regardless of whatever you're telling me, I'm inclined to believe my child, because every single time that I've come to you with an incident, you've downplayed it. You said it didn't happen, or you said it happened different from her. And I said, there's no reason she has to lie to me. Like, none. Why? There's not consequences. She's not an exaggerator. She's a really good student. She's always in class. She wants to do well. And I said to her over this phone, I said, there's no way you're going to continue to gaslight me or pacify me so that I get quiet about this, because I have done all of the proper steps. And she's like, well, there's now in place procedures to remove him from her classes. I said, this is way too late for this.
Too late.
This is way too late. Yeah, this is the fourth time. This is not the first time. This is not the second time. This is a pattern, and he's targeting her. He's walking over to her desk. He's going to wherever she is to bother her. And it's not fair that we've had to get to this point of violence. And it's not even like it wasn't violent before. This extreme point of violence for it to be taken care of. We're in 4th grade, okay? Like, this is so far beyond appropriate. And I know I'm not screaming at her, but I'm definitely raising my voice. And I said, and you know what? I have a meeting with the district. My child will not be present for school on Monday, because this happened on a Friday. I said, until I can guarantee her that she's safe at school and safe with the adults around her, she will not be attending. And I said, and I'll meet with you after I meet with the superintendent. And then I hung up. So
good for you. Listen, good for you, because to keep your somewhat composure in that situation, I probably could not have. So,
well, and my client like pulls up right after I get off the phone. I'm like, hey, listen, and thank God her and I've been friends for a long time And I said, hey, I'm just like really worked up about this. I'm good, but I just want you to know I'm fired up. She's like, no, tell me all the things. So she let me like fill her in while she's stressed. Yeah, give me all the things. And she's like, yeah, I'd be pissed. I'm like, am I losing it? I feel like I'm losing my mind. She's like, no, this is wild. And I was like, okay, cool. Need that validation, you know? And so,
absolutely.
yeah, so that happened Friday. And then Monday, I had posted the TikTok. I don't even know. I think it was Saturday, maybe. I really was just going through the district process is just like a new realm for me. I really just wanted advice for people who had dealt with this. And I posted that right before I started a session. I'm pretty sure I posted that Saturday. I can't remember. And I literally posted it and then went to my session to work. And then I came back and it was just like crazy. And all this advice, I read through so much of it. And then I'm getting like DM after, I think I had like 115 direct messages about people who have dealt with very similar scenarios. It obviously like varies by state. A lot of people were like lawyer up. A lot of people were telling me, like, make sure you go through the district, make sure you file press charges. And so there was just a lot of really good advice. And I really just needed to know what I was up against as far as how hard I was going to have to push. And so, I went into the meeting very well prepared. One of the best pieces of advice that I got from the TikTok being posted and going crazy was document everything, have it ready. And I did. Absolutely. I made like a document of each time. I looked up the dates to verify that I had reported it and that the conversation, how it had gone from what my version of my kids was and then what the version I got back from the vice principal. Like I literally had everything like laid out, documented. And so I walked into this meeting and I just looked at my daughter and I said, listen, no matter what they say, that doesn't mean that what happened to you didn't happen to you. Exactly. It just means that we're going to push a little bit harder to make sure that you're heard and that they understand the depth of it is not okay for anyone to put their hands on you.
Right.
And she said, okay. So she went to this meeting with me. I was so proud of her. We sat down. I walked into the superintendent's office and I was surprised to see the principal there. At this point, I had not had contact with the principal, but me and the principal actually have a decent relationship. Because we have dealt with some things with her 504 plan at school. And so I had quite a bit of interaction with him. And this particular principal is very involved in the campus. And I hadn't reached out to him because I was trying to follow the steps. And the steps were go through the vice principal. So I was just trying to make sure I was doing things the right way. And I look back at it and I wish that I had reached out to him sooner, honestly, because when we walked in, I documented everything, like I said, went through each step, each incident. I brought up the incident and then my child gave the detailed description of what happened. And then I brought it back to you. This is what the vice principal said to me. This was how it was handled. These were the comments that were made. And then I included another incident where I had gotten a phone call. I was out of state at the time and I got a phone call from the counselor. And the counselor said, hey, your daughter was sitting by herself at lunch today, which I thought was really weird. And I went to talk to her and she said that they were calling her names at the table. And I said, okay, who's sitting at this table? And she names the two boys, the one that was involved in the second incident and the one that she had regularly had issues with were taunting her at the table. And I said, okay. And she said, and she decided to like remove herself. She's like, so I just want to ask, is it like a like situation? And I instantly like cringed. I was like, oh God. And I said, regardless if it is a like situation, it's super inappropriate for us to refer to that as the reason for them to behave the way that they're behaving.
Yeah.
And I said, and I don't want my daughter to think because they like her that it's okay for them to act like that around her and for her to put up with that because they like her. And I said, it's honestly really inappropriate to even bring that up, and I appreciate it if she did it with my daughter. And so
and so I feel like that was such a thing in our generation too, though. Like if they like you, they're picking on you, or if they like you, they call you names. You know, and like it's so weird to like think of that as adults, because it's like now when you when guys like talk to you or like make fun of you, they're like, oh, they like me. And it's like, no, bitch, that's not what it is. And that's such a hard mindset to like break as an adult too, though, because you know, when guys 100%. Are like mean or disrespectful to you, it's like, well, maybe it's because he likes me. And it's like, No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's what it
No.
is, sis. So,
Well, and I really don't want to set those boundaries of, hey, it's okay to be abusive verbally, and
right.
he still likes me, and that's okay. Like, he still loves me.
I
Like,
love that
I
you're
don't want her
not
to
allowing
think.
that for her. Yeah,
No, it's weird.
it is.
And then it goes like, it could just not be verbally abusive. I mean, that just leads into, that spirals into so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I want
Mm-hmm.
her worth to be so much more than the words that people say to her. Like, she needs to find the worth in herself.
Exactly.
And to tie the two, I don't want to tie the two together.
I love that
So
you
that whole
caught
scenario,
that
I had asked her,
as well, like
I was
from
ew. Like,
the
I don't know
counselor.
why I did, but it just gave me like, ugh.
Ugh, yeah,
Um,
no, good for you.
so I asked her, I said, I just don't want to bring it up to my child. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, oh, well, I sent her back to the table and I told her she needed to work it out with them. I I about
Oh
lost my
no.
mind.
Oh
I said,
no.
I said, I said, is lunch still going on? Because I would really like for you to remove her from that situation. She said, no, it's over. I said, okay, in the future, if my child chooses to remove herself from the situation, please do not send her back, because she's doing that so somebody doesn't get hurt. And if she decides to physically retaliate because she's forced to sit back in that situation, she's not going to be in trouble in my house. I was
Absolutely.
so
I would have been like, I need you to
oh
go
my
get
God,
my
I was
child
sick.
from class and explain to her why it was a
Mhm.
mistake for her to go back to that table.
So my child, I'm really anti-phones just because of bullying, and I feel like bullying follows you home if you have a phone. So
Mhm.
she has a watch, and the watch is one that it only gets text messages if you have the app, which I'm the only one who has access to the app, and
Mhm.
then it only lets you call the program numbers in the watch. So
Mhm.
you have a program of 10 numbers, and it's like for emergencies, but there's no like texting, there's no games, there's no internet. I
Mhm.
really just wanted it in case of emergency. So I sent her a quick text. I'm like, hey, I just wanted to check on you. And she's like, yeah, I'm having a rough day. And I said, I'm so sorry you're having a rough day. Whenever you're ready to talk about it, we can talk about it. Let's call me after school. She said, okay. And that really gave me just the peace of mind that she was okay and that we would talk about it later. And so
Yeah.
obviously, like, we did. And it's really hard because I do travel for work sometimes. So being out of state during all of that was just made me want to throw up. But,
Yeah.
you do what you got to do. And so we FaceTime later and we talked about it. And I said, you see how that's not really appropriate? And she's like, yeah, they kind of mentioned that he might like me. And I just don't like that he likes me and thinks it's okay to treat me like that. And I said, I'm
Mhm.
so proud of you for
Right.
acknowledging that. I'm so proud of
Yeah.
you. So back to the superintendent's office, I brought this up, and the principal was shocked. And so I don't know if he just wasn't aware of, obviously when you run a school, there's so many things that you're watching, and I know that you can't
Absolutely.
catch everything, and I know that
Mhm.
my child is not any other special than any other child. You've got a million kids to deal with. I get that. So I just don't think that he was being made aware of the situation. I think it had been downplayed, and that's just my assumption. I can't guarantee that that's what happened, but just based off of the body language and the face expressions that I was getting,
Mhm.
um I think that he was just blindsided by the extreme situation and how it had all built. And it was almost like the pieces just kept stacking until we led to the final incident.
Mhm.
So at the very end of the meeting, the superintendent said, moving forward, how are we going to guarantee you that to make your child feel safe? I said, I want the student removed. I said, this is ridiculous. This is the fourth time. And they said that they have procedures in place and that wasn't possible, but they said they could make the right steps to ensure that he would be removed if there were further incidences. I said, okay, explain to me how this works, because I'm at a loss now. And
Mhm.
he said they put in a stay away order, which basically is like the equivalent of a restraining order in the school. And so they put in a restraining order. If he violates the restraining order, he's permanently removed. So so they put in a stay away order. And so the way it works is if he violates the stay away order, then
Mhm.
he would be removed from the school. And so I looked at my child and I said, do you feel like this is safe enough for you to go to school? And she said, can we talk about it later? I said, yeah, of course.
Mhm.
And I turned back to the principal and I said, she won't be attending school until the paperwork is drafted and there's signatures on it. And he said
Mhm.
that he would make sure it was done the next morning. And I said, oh, okay, great. Because there's definitely benchmarks tomorrow. We definitely don't want her to miss that. And he said, absolutely not. So the timing of that I just thought was interesting. But and then before I left the office, I said, just so you know, this particular parent has flaunted around school that she can have students removed whenever she wants. On multiple occasions, she's told other parents that she decides or she chooses not to discipline her children because they don't need to be disciplined. And um, and I've been told that in the meetings and the societies that she's part of here, that she's a bully herself. And by the behavior that has been exerted at events that I've seen her, she definitely gives off this I'm better than everyone else vibe. And that's just from my personal experience with her. At that time when I had interacted with her, I hadn't had any issues with her child yet, but it just kind of fit the scenario. And so I said to them, I said, I really take it seriously, even bringing this to your office, and just know that this decision wasn't taken lightly, especially because I know who I've decided to argue with and put up against and whose child this is. And I said, but at the end of the day, everyone should be held responsible for their actions. And this has just gone way too far for way too long.
Yeah, and treated equally, regardless of who
absolutely.
the parent versus child is.
Exactly. So the superintendent, he looked at me and he said, well, I have no ties to her. So whatever she said doesn't hold weight here. And he said, I really appreciate that. And he said, and just for your information, I'm actually friends with your mother. And I said, oh, that's so crazy, which is crazy. I had no idea at that time, but that also made me feel better because I felt like it was actually being listened to, which is sad that I have to have some sort of leverage to be listened to in the first place. But that was eye-opening for me because I had no idea. My mom works in the school district at a different school, but I just didn't know. Like, I don't know. I didn't no idea. So that just kind of, and he said that in front of the principal, which also made me feel really good about the situation because I feel like that solidified that the situation was going to be taken care of. Yeah. So me and my daughter stepped out of the room. They had a meeting after we left. And I asked her outside, I said, how do you feel about it? She's like, I just don't know if that's going to be enough to make me feel safe. And I said, I totally understand. I said, do you want me to remove you from the school? And she said, no, I want to go back. And I said, okay, well, this is how it has to be. I said, but the second that gets violated, you need to go tell someone because I can't do anything when I'm far away. I said, even if that means going to the nurse's office and calling me and I'm the one that reports it, fine. But it needs to happen at that instant because that's the only way that I can help you. And she said, okay. Her and the nurse have created this little bond. And I just think it's great because it's someone on campus that she feels safe with. I said, if that's what you need to do, girl, do it. So
be like, look, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I need to go to the nurse's office and do that. Something.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
So since all of this has happened, they pulled in both parents. I know that because I have friends at the school like his parents are coming in here right now and they look mad. I was like, good, they should be.
Right. Good for them.
And my other thing with all of this is I'm just blown away as a mom. If this happened the first time, if this were reversed and I was in their shoes, I would have been up there. My kid would have been apologizing. I mean, I would have acknowledged to those parents that I know that this is a serious situation. Not the fourth time, not the third time, the first time. We would have been up there. You would have been saying you're sorry. Absolutely not. This doesn't need to happen like this.
Yeah.
And there's been zero contact from his parents with me. Her and I have only run into each other one time since then, and it was just in passing, and I got a dirty look, which is fine. I don't care. me and my child look identical, so I could see it's very easy for her to probably associate the two. I don't know if she had connected the dots, but I would assume so. But yeah, this parent just had zero interest, I guess, in discussing it with me. But the parents went up, they signed the document. He has had no issues with her. They removed her from all of his classes, or not removed him from all of her classes. I said that backwards. And so she didn't lose out on anything. He was the one to lose out, which I think was important. It's a good natural consequence of, behaving the way that you behave. And,
agreed.
Yeah, and they've really had zero issues. The teachers have been on top of it, which I'm so thankful for. I wish it would have happened before, but here we are.
Right.
And the one particular teacher that I had a hard time with, I haven't really heard anything from. And like I said, the incidences in that classroom haven't really changed. So, yeah, this is just where we're at.
Yeah.
I know that she has had some run-ins with him in the hallway,
Mm-hmm.
and I was told that he hid behind another student. So I feel like the point was made, and we had a very good results. And I've had multiple check-ins from the principal, just asking
Mm-hmm.
me like how she's doing, which I appreciate. He's very involved in like the drive-through drop-off process and pickup process, which is weird
Mm-hmm.
for a principal because I feel like they're never that involved, but he's super involved, and he always comes over and like we'll check in and just ask on occasion to make sure that everything's going well. So
Yeah.
I feel like my point was made, and I feel like it was handled the best way. I just wish that everybody had the same outcome that we have had, and I wish that it didn't take 4 times, but I'm just glad that we're where we're at now for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, listen, like I've said, I've dealt with bullying with both my kids. I have two. I have almost 14 and then an 8-year-old that'll be 9 in September. And
Mm-hmm.
my oldest has definitely dealt with it the hardest. And my second kid is 8, and he's dealt with it here and there. He's type 1 diabetic, and he wears an insulin pump and all that. And kids are like, what is that? Like they pick on him for that, and they say stuff about that, and just different things. And it's like, you're in second grade, like you're 8, and it's just like, kids nowadays are relentless, I feel like, when it comes to
Yep.
bullying. And like
Yep.
you've said, it goes home with you, unlike when
Mm-hmm.
we were growing up, where you dealt with it at school, you might have dealt with it on the bus, if you went
Mm-hmm.
out somewhere on the weekends with your friends, like to a restaurant or whatever with your parents, like you might have dealt with it there or whatever. But like, you when you went home at night, like you didn't have to deal, like you could process it and deal with it at home and work through it, and then you go back the next day. But like, now kids have social media, and it's like, you have to go home and you're on Facebook and Instagram and all these social media things and deal with it that way. And it's so hard. Not, my kids both have phones, but neither one of them have any social media. My oldest has Snapchat.
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
one that he has.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always like, at least once a week, I'm in his like Snapchat feeds, like reading and
Yeah.
looking. Because
You have to. Like,
well, because I'm
it's
like,
inevitable.
listen, of all of the social media accounts you have the one that deletes after 24 hours, and you guys save everything. Like, really? Come on.
Mhm.
I'm like, what are you doing?
It's purpose,
And
right?
there's some stuff that he says in there, and I'm like, listen, you're 13.
Mm-hmm.
Watch what you're saying,
Yep.
because every
Yep.
time I go in there and I find things and he's saying, cuss words he shouldn't be saying. And I'm just like, every
Mm-hmm.
time I find this, and I tell you, I look through your phone. Why do you keep doing it?
Yep.
Like, I know you're
Yeah,
just
like,
trying,
pull it together.
I know you're just trying to look cool for your friends, whatever, because some of these kids' parents, they just don't care if they cuss, like, and at the end of the day, like, I mean,
And they don't, that's the whole point, is like, they don't care. And that like makes me
oh,
crazy.
I know. And I mean, I'm like the world's worst when it comes to cussing. Like, look, my dad was a truck driver growing up. So I
Yeah,
got,
so am I.
so, like I had no filter, when I was growing
No,
up around
no.
at all. But at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
like, I could pick and choose my battles when it comes to that. And I'm grateful that, he could be doing a lot worse at 13, because I've heard horror stories. But
Absolutely.
he could be out doing drugs and God knows what, getting girls pregnant. But
Mm-hmm.
we're just cussing on Snapchat, so it's okay
I
at the
mean,
end
but
of the
that's the
day,
worst,
right? But
right?
I'm just like, the way that they bully nowadays is like, I don't even think of that as a 36-year-old adult. I'm like, damn, you guys are
Mm-hmm.
mean. It's just,
Mean. They're
it
so mean. Oh
it
my
is like,
God.
they cut with a
So mean.
freaking butcher knife. Like, it's not just a butter
Yeah,
knife
they
and a little
do.
jab. Like, it is a butcher knife. It is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it's so hard. It's so hard to just like, because you, as parents, as moms especially, but parents in general, like, we want to just go to that school and we want to grab the kid by the throat and be like, "Nyeh," but
Oh yeah.
obviously,
100%.
jail time isn't, we don't all look good in orange, um but
Yeah.
orange is not my color. But I've
No.
dealt with it. I've dealt with it with mine, and I've just gotten to the point where you know, and it's not the right answer for everybody. And I really don't feel like it's the right answer for mine. We talked about it before we started recording. I'm like, look, if you have told them 3 times to stop and they just don't listen, just hit them. I'm over it. I'm so over it. And again, I don't feel like violence is the answer. I don't feel like that's the right answer. But I don't know what else to tell my kids.
I'm really, what do you do at this point?
I'm really at a loss. Like, if you have told them to stop more than 3 times, at this point, you have my permission as your mom to hit them. And if I get a phone call that you've gotten in a fight, well, I'll come get you. And like you said, we'll go get fucking ice cream because I'm over it. Like, let's go get a Blizzard. Let's go get, or we'll go to Mexican and eat chips and queso because my kids love that. So
100%.
I'm just.
I told her that. I was like, if you get, like, girl, if you get in trouble, we're going out. Like, you're going to just skip the day. Like, it's fine. If you're defending yourself and you have a legitimate reason for having to defend yourself, you're not going to be in trouble in my book. Like, you're doing what you got to do.
Right.
We did talk about that, and I asked her, I said, you know how to defend yourself. Like, we've taught you this forever. And she said, I just don't want to be that kind of kid. And I said, I get it. And I said, but all you got to do is hit him one time. He'll never do it again. She said, yeah, it's just not me. And I said, okay, I get that. I said, but if you do,
right,
I'm not gonna be mad at you.
Yeah. And my oldest is getting to the point where it's like, depending on how much you hit him, like, you know, I feel like jail time is, you know, it's there. You know, he's gonna be 14 soon, but it's just like, I just don't know what else to tell them. You know, it's and nowadays, like, kids with,
I wish there was a better answer, and I wish it wasn't so like. I wish there wasn't so much stacked up against them where we had to go through such great lengths to get results. Like, I wish that you could just report it and it'd be taken care of. And it wasn't all this secrecy and like redacted names. Like, I should have gotten an incident report right off the bat. And, you know, there should have been a sit down with the kid and the parents right off the bat. I don't understand why
that's the way it was when I was growing up. I feel like both sets of parents came in, sat down with the kids, and like, and we were like, this shit's gonna stop. Okay, it's gonna stop. Like, Billy and Susie had a conversation and it was done. Like, we didn't, and if we dealt with it again, like, there were severe consequences at home. And it didn't come back to school. 100%. I don't understand this generation of parenting for some people. It's just like, what are you doing? Why are you not parenting your child?
I feel like personally, like, I would still consider myself like a gentle parent, but I'm not even really a gentle parent. I feel like I parent based off of logic. So if you're being dumb, you're going to get natural consequences or consequences that match whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
And like, I feel like we're at the point now where people take gentle parenting as not parenting.
As lazy.
And it's like, you can't not parent. That's neglect, you know? Like, you've got to still tell them. You still got to guide them. You still have to correct them.
Right.
But you don't have to, like, beat them into submission either. I mean, like, there's a fine line.
There's a difference between abuse and discipline.
Yes.
And there's a difference between gentle parenting and not parenting.
Thank you. Yes. And it also too depends on the kid. Like, I have my older daughter's very gentle spirited. And so it's like, I look at her sideways and she's like, you know, whereas oh God, that phase was rough. But, whereas the younger one, like, I have to like get on her. I'm like, listen, and she's 3 and she's Spitfire.
But, I say that second child.
But the
listen, everybody says the second child is like the wildfire child. I got the opposite. My oldest is like balls to the wall. He is my like no holds bar, doesn't give a shit, will do whatever. So Tasmanian devil. And my second is like
have one of each. As long as you have one of each,
and
you're good.
My second is like, I can be like, look at him and he's like like, you know. So I got the total, like, I always say this and I always joke with people. I'm like, look, when I get old and I need to like be in a nursing home, my second is going to be the one that has like an extra bedroom for me or like a grandma suite, you know, kind of thing. And my oldest is going to be like, I haven't talked to my mom in 3 months. I don't know where she's at.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be my oldest. My oldest is going to be like, take care of me. And my youngest is going to be like, full send. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Like the oldest has got her. I don't know what she's doing.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Actually, my youngest just turned 4. That's weird. I forgot. She just turned 4 literally like a week ago. But
Yeah.
she's a COVID baby. And she's something else. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's crazy.
She's why we can't have nice things. That's the joke, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my oldest is just, man. And it's crazy. They say like your pregnancies are opposite of how your kids are. Like my first pregnancy was cakewalk. Simple, easy. And my kid, no. My second pregnancy,
Your trick pregnancy.
awful.
Yeah.
If my first pregnancy had been like that, I'd never had another one because it was hell.
I had a really easy baby. My first daughter, so easy. I was like, oh, I got this parenting thing down. And then I had my second, I was like, oh my God.
That's what they
what
say.
Is this?
Yeah. My second one was the easy one. I'm like, man, I wish I had him first, kind of, because I don't know. My first one prepared me for anything, I guess, because he's just crazy. But it's great because like he's gotten to the point now where like we kind of do like everything together, you know, and it's like he's gotten to this point where like I can have like conversations with him and like, you know, so it's nice. But
it's wild the change that happens the older they get. Like we've just even nine has been such a weird, in a good way, age. I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to an adult. I'm like, when did you stop being a kid? Like who's this adult that's like talking to me right now?
It's really it's mind-boggling to watch them like transition from like kid to like preteen to like teen. It's like
100%.
What's happening? And they do it so much earlier nowadays, I feel like, too, than like we did.
Oh yeah, totally. Me at 9,
I was still playing with Barbies.
I know.
100%.
Do you remember? Oh my gosh, I feel like you and I are probably the same age, but do you remember when like we would record videos like back in the day with our little like point and shoot cameras, and we would like do dancing videos, and they were so cringy.
100%.
And I like look at dancing videos now, and I'm like, ugh, what are we doing? Like I feel it's bad.
Yeah, my parents still have the small little recorder things that go in the VHSs. That you put in the thing, and me and my best friends were in our basements doing like Spice Girl videos. Like we were
same. Shit. Oh my God,
100%. And we have went back and watched them probably like 7-8 years ago. We went back and we watched them, and I was just like, if we put this shit on TikTok now, people would be like,
oh God. Oh,
what is that?
We go viral again, girl.
Oh my God. Like, what is that? Yeah, kids nowadays, like, are doing these crazy viral dance videos at like 7 and 8. You're like,
I'm like, geez.
What is that?
Where'd the dance skills come from?
Still don't have that rhythm.
No.
Not at all.
Oh, man. I was an awkward, like 9 to like 8th, almost 9th grade. 9, maybe even 10th grade. I was real awkward. There were some weird things going on. I don't even know. I remember like I grew up in the desert, and I remember I went through this phase where like I only wore sweats like and all the time. I'm like, what was I doing? Why did I do that? Like black sweats. They had to be black sweats and a black zip up, and that's all I wore. And I was like, why? Like, why did I torture myself? It was hot. I know it was. The phases are real.
It is. It's so funny. I went through the like whole goth emo phase, and I look back at it and I'm like,
yes, that was really big. Oh my God.
What are you doing? I showed my kid, and he was like, you were emo? And I was like, shut up. Just shut up. Just stop it. Stop. I can't with you. God, and I was like, you know, you had the whole arm of the like little bracelets and the different colors.
Oh my gosh, I had so many. And I dyed my hair black. I'm like always blonde, but I dyed my hair black once, and I was like, oh God. I look back and I was like, ooh, that was rough.
Yeah. The days, the 90s and the early 2000s are just, I feel like we had like the best childhood though when it comes to like generational things.
We were like the end of an era for sure.
Literally, yeah. It was great.
Literally.
But getting back to bullying, I did pull up a few statistics for like elementary age. 33% of U.S. elementary students report bullying while they're at school. 20% of kindergarten students report
Oh my
bullying.
gosh. Oh, that got
20%
me
of
sick.
kindergarten. Yeah. Um, it also says young children can have difficulty telling the difference between teasing and bullying, which I think is important to kind
Yeah,
of like know the difference. So, a few things it says
absolutely.
teasing is playful, good natured, and goes back and forth. Bullying is one sided.
Hmm.
Teasing makes
Yeah.
up a small part of a relationship, bullying defies the relationship. Teasing stops
Oh,
when
I
the
love that
child,
definition.
yeah, teasing stops when the child tells the other person they do not like it. Bullying continues even after the victim asks them to stop.
Wow, I love how that's defined. That is a great way to explain that.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's super important to talk about with especially young kids, but even all the way like
Hmm.
to adulthood. Those three defining definitions are really important. I mean, even as adults, you know? Like if you're be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm just
Yeah.
teasing you." And I'm like, "But I don't like it." And you continue,
But I'm not enjoying this. Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
bullying me. You're not teasing me. Like
Yep. No.
that's a big thing for even adults. Like I mean, I can look at
Yeah.
some relationships that I have and be like, okay, check. Like,
Yep.
you know?
I had a conversation with the principal about just a different incident, um and they were playing like a game, and she decided she just didn't want to play anymore, and this kid
Mm-hmm.
continued to play with her in that way that she didn't like, and essentially it's like popping each other on the top of the head, and she's like, they're too rough. And I said, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
say you don't want to play anymore, like you don't have to continue. But this
Mm-hmm.
kid continued and continued and continued. And so one of the things that I had said was, she has her right to revoke her consent at any point,
Right.
and that doesn't just apply for what we think consent applies to. It applies for
Mm-hmm.
everything. If she doesn't want to play something anymore, she doesn't have to. If she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want to tease back and forth anymore, she doesn't have to. And if she very clearly states, I don't want to play, I don't want to talk to each other like that anymore, I don't want to engage in this anymore, she
Mm-hmm.
has that right to revoke that consent at any point. And
Right.
I feel like that should be a very clear line in the sand. And I think that not everybody understands how clear of a line that is.
100%. Yeah.
It's a struggle.
Yeah. Another thing I just pulled up for signs of bullying. So, like, if you don't know your kid's being bullied and you're wondering, like, my kid's been acting different, like, what could it be? So, some
Hmm.
signs to look for
Hmm.
is injuries they can't explain, changes in eating and sleeping, faking an illness or
Hmm.
claiming that they're sick, like they don't want to go to school, headaches and stomach
Yeah.
aches, avoiding social situations, including those with people who they once were friends with, which I think is a big one. So, like, if,
Hmm.
oh, they used to hang out
Yeah.
with Tommy and now they're like, I don't want to be around Tommy anymore. It's like, well, why? Is he doing
Yeah.
something? Decreased
Yeah.
self
We ask
esteem.
we ask our daughter for the
Hmm.
tea. So
Hmm.
she'll give us like the tea on whoever's having a hard time at school or whatever. And I feel like
Hmm.
that really has helped bridge that gap of
Hmm.
what's going on at school. Why? Oh, I thought you were friends with so and so. Why
Hmm.
aren't you hanging out with them anymore? That has really helped with that, because I definitely saw that as a sign for sure.
Yeah, I have a thing with both my kids. I sit down with them every night before bed, and we just kind of like right at bedtime. We just kind of talk about their day, like what happened today, how's your day, did anything happen,
Hmm.
um, what are you doing tomorrow, like anything coming up, like just simple
Hmm.
things like that. And I kind of just like scratch their back or kind of like massage their head and kind of help them go to sleep too in the process. But I think it's just
Yes.
some little thing during the day after they come home from school or sports or whatever they're
Hmm.
doing, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
to gauge what's going on, because you never know, like
Yeah,
if you're
for
not
sure.
talking to your kid about what's
Hmm.
going on in their day, you're never going to know, because a lot of the times they're not just going to listen. Kids are not going to come out and just flat out tell you what's going on. I don't care how good your relationship is with them. If you don't engage with them, they're just going to go to their room and shut the door and be on their video games or watch TV or whatever, because you have to.
That trust is built, and like you have to invest to receive, and so it's not just like an overnight. They're not just going to spill all their secrets to you. You know, like you've got to invest in them to get back, especially with communication. 100%.
Yeah. A few other ones is self-harm or dangerous behaviors, losing possessions, which could be like, you know, the bullies making them give them stuff, or, you know, whatever. Worsening academic behaviors, getting into fights, having trouble with friends, showing concerns about their reputation and popularity. So, and there's also a couple other things on here. I'll link this page here. It's crisistextline.org, but there's a lot of really good resources on here. So I'll link that in like the show notes and stuff like that too, so people have that. And it also says you can text HOME, HOME, to 741741 if you need free, confidential, 24/7 mental health support. So that's interesting.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, to have as well, I guess. I don't know if it's like all mental health or if it's just around bullying. I think it's everything, but this page specifically is on bullying. So that's interesting to have too. But I'll link all that.
Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, I've really appreciated you coming on and sharing with us about your daughter. Hopefully things stay good with her and she doesn't have any more issues. But yeah, I appreciate it. When I saw your story on TikTok, I was like, I need to reach out to her and try and get her on.
I'm so glad you did.
It's such a huge topic that a lot of people don't share for the fear of, you know, retaliation and stuff. And it's hard to talk about, especially when it's our kiddos. But I'm really glad that you were open and able to come on and talk about it and bring awareness to it, because it's something that needs to be talked about. Well, thanks for asking
my side. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course, for sure. But we'll put everything in the show notes, and I'll link your TikTok too, so people can go watch your videos about it as well. So
thank you. I appreciate you. It was really nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure you hit the follow button on whatever listening platform you are using, and head over to my social media pages and give me a follow there as well. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok at Creating Yourself Pod. And if you have a story you would like to share on this podcast, email me at creatingyourselfpod@gmail.com, or you can message me on any of my social media pages. Make sure and come back next Tuesday for a brand new episode. Hope you guys have a great week. Bye.